Hey there everybody, it's me, Hology here, joining you today in the land of Whiteberg, courtesy of WBC Builds, his country here on this Minecraft server, where I've recently been promoted to a builder rank and have started work on a town here, which I've delightfully given the name of Ren'sgate. One of the first things I've decided that I wanted to do with starting up my new town of Ren'sgate here is to build a grand ocean liner in the harbor outside here that will be entering the city, and eventually I'll want to put up like a port of some kind and have like an industrial area and, you know, all that kind of fun stuff. Because here in the country of Whiteberg on this server, the sort of idea is that everything is taking place in the time period between the beginning of the Georgian period and the mid to late Edwardian period, so roughly 1700 up through 1914. And I'm pushing it all the way up to the very end of that period that we've defined here for this world, with these grand ocean liners of such class that you see I've already started one of them here, coming into existence around the turn of the 20th century, that being 1900 to through, to all the way up to the end of 1914. I've already began building this one you can see right here, this guy. I started work on it at a 1-to-1 scale, meaning I looked up about the length that these ships were in the year 1910 and found that a good length would probably be somewhere around 240, 230, 220, you know, less than that, meters long. This one in this case is 235 blocks long, so that would put this at a 1-to-1 scale. But unfortunately, I found that once I started doing this and putting in the deck plans, that only gives me, with a typical number of decks that you would find in a ship of this length, 2.5 blocks of space between each floor, which is very cramped, much more cramped than I would like. I mean, I would be able to pull it off if I tried, but I really want this ship to be something nice. I want to give it a nice interior, something that you'd want to go around and explore, and I feel like 2.5 blocks is just too limited for a nice interior. So I've decided I don't want to continue working on this one that I've started. Instead, I'll start work on another one off to the side here at a slightly larger scale, just enough to give me a 3-block clearance between each of the decks, and I'll repurpose the hull that I've made for this ship into something else. So I'll strip off the superstructure that I've done already and redo these windows so that there's probably only two decks, so that it's a smaller ship compared to the larger one that I'll build over here. And I'll just put it off to the side that I do want to keep this sort of like realistic to what would be in the period, so I'll just say that the whole town of Ren'sburg is at a, I don't know, 1.3 or 1.5. I'll determine the exact scale after I've finished with the structure itself. That's usually how I end up going about these things. Just go with what looks like it works, measure it, and then determine the scale. I'll declare it a 1.345 or whatever it ends up being scale after I've already built it, which is somewhat unconventional, I know, but hey, I think it'll work out just fine. So one of the interesting things that I found when researching the proportions of these ships is that a good ratio of the breadth and depth of the length and width, I should say, of the ship is about a 1-to-9 ratio. So if I stack this 8, we'll get 1 up for every 9 across. And looking down at this, it sort of seems like that is way too narrow for any ship to be built. But believe me, once you start building the structure itself with the hull and the stern and the superstructure, that quickly sort of shrinks down, and it doesn't seem quite as narrow once you've got working on it. I have done ships before where I've underestimated the length that I need, and I've gone way too short, like maybe 5-to-1, and the superstructure ends up being like tiny, because I'll get the hull in and the stern in, and then there'll only be this tiny little space in the middle left over, so it is important to make sure that your proportions are accurate when starting out this thing. It's the shape of the hole on the bottom that's the most important, I find, because it really defines how the ship will look in the end. Because if you don't get it quite right, you don't get that effect, that sort of like the flaring out effect that is really signature of liners of this period. You can see it sort of just pokes over out of the side of the front of the bow here, and if we go over to the back looking at this way, the ship almost sort of looks like it sort of flares outwards like this. It almost looks kind of weird, but if you look up pictures of ocean liners, that is the shape that they end up having. So making sure that you have the contour accurate is pretty important to making these things look just right. As I start building here, I'm going to use white concrete, I reckon. Should I use white concrete? Let me think. Yeah, I'll use white concrete. Why not? This will just be for a temporary block, and we can, of course, replace them with whatever colors we need later. So I'm going to start out right here. So I'm going to... this will be in the same orientation as the ship I started here. The bow will be at the front, heading back to the stern. And we find that the shape of the hull is different at the bottom than it is at the top. As you can see, at the bottom it starts out very narrow and sort of gradually wakes its way out under the waterline, but up here at the very top deck, it very quickly sorts of flares out, so it gives you that effect that I was describing earlier. But it'll be easier to see that once I start plotting it out here on the ground. I'll start by marking off where I want the hull lines to be at each of these different sections that I've lined out. So right here, I think I'll put that halfway between there. And I'm using reference pictures, of course, to guide me with this. If you look up pictures of the deck plans for liners, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, excellent. Okay, yeah, that's what I want. All right, and oh yeah, of course, I need to do the end here. I'll just have this straight for now. I'm going to have to adjust the shape of this later. I found that I had to do that with that guy too. So for this, I'm going to change my selection tool from Cell Cuboid, which is the default in WorldEdit, where you have 2 selection points that forms a box in 3D space, to Cell Poly. And that creates a 2-dimensional polygon that's extruded across the minimum and maximum y-axes. However, we're doing this on a 2-dimensional plane, so that won't matter to us. So we're just going to select all of these white concrete blocks I laid out here. And you'll see what I do in just a moment once I got them all selected. There we go, there we go. Oh, is this in the right spot? Yeah, it is, okay. Just making sure. Should be perfectly symmetrical once I'm done. Alright, and now we'll do /s set white concrete. And there we have the shape of the stern. Does that look right to me? I mean the shape of the hull, sorry. I think I might want to push this one out. Yeah, that looks a little too pinched to me. Just 1 block, perhaps. We'll do the top deck next at a certain level. I think that should be about two-thirds of the way up. Yeah, and that'll be where the top deck lies, just like on this guy here. And I'll just need to make sure I get this in the right spot. So this time, it won't be in the exact same place. This contour will come out a little quicker on the upper deck. So making sure that this is right, I'll have to put the next point here. And this time, instead of coming out just barely, it'll come all the way out. You know what? Actually, I'm going to copy and paste this. And that'll make it easier for me. It'll be just temporary. So the first line, I'll have it stop about just less than halfway out. Okay, I'll go faster than that. Right here. Yeah, that's good. So that's 2 blocks. There we go. And here it'll already almost be completely contoured. Yeah, 2 blocks out. Then I'll do 1 block each here. You know what? Yeah, I'll stick with it. Let's do it. It might be a little more challenging than I'm used to, but whatever. I'll make it work. Ah, perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing, just copy this onto the other side, and we should be golden. So the next thing that I'm going to want to do here is make connections between all of these different blocks on the top and the bottom. Luckily, because the hull eventually flushes out to the same width on both the top and bottom decks here, we can exploit a very simple principle in that the number of blocks that it takes to contour this from the center point to the very edge is the exact same number of blocks that it takes to contour the front of the bow here to the very side here. So if we count these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that should be this dimension right here, 16 points. So there'll be 16 lines going from this point to that one diagonally that way. And then after we got those lines in, we can modify their shape roughly to what we want, and we'll have a good enough hull for all intents and purposes. And I'll move that 2 blocks. There we go. Fill this in. That way the bow can sort of stick out a little bit towards the top. Just a little bit, not too much. Ships from this period didn't have too much flex to them. Okay, so I'll do the selections and then do set, / line. And what block do I want to use? I'll do stone this time. That way we don't get confused. And of course, like I said, I'll replace all of these with the blocks we actually want the ship to be afterwards. So doing this will create sort of a rough, very linear looking contour, but it'll give us something to start with. It just makes it easier to get this done quicker if you do it this way, I find. Of course, it won't look very good at first, but it'll come together. So the problem with just leaving these straight lines like this is that if you look at it from a side, it pretty much just creates a straight line looking at it from the side, looking at it from the front, and that isn't what we want. We want it to have more of a curve to it. If we look over to this one that I have, I've sort of contoured these manually, and it has more of a bulbous effect where it sort of flares out and back in. But over here, it looks more or less just like a straight line going down from the top to the bottom, and we don't want that. And you'll see that as we get further down here, the slope of these lines will gradually get wider and wider. But then, as we get higher up, they'll actually start heightening again. It'll be easier to see what I mean once I've actually finished it, so let me off to do that. I think that's a little better, yeah. I'll go with that. Good enough for me. Doesn't need to be perfect. There's a lot of room for interpretation in Minecraft. Like, you have a pillar that's 1 block wide. How is the pillar designed? There are 1,000 different ways to design a pillar. Is it a cubular pillar? Is it an octagonal pillar? You can't tell. It's all up to context, so there's always quite a bit of room for leniency with accuracy here in Minecraft. It's all just based on how you see it. There we have a shape starting to come along quite nicely. I'll go over to the front here so you can see what I mean again with a straight line. Yeah, that's just a perfectly straight line going up. We don't want that. We want it to have a curve to it. So we'll have to go in here and start modifying these lines manually. Essentially, I'll just show you what I've done here. What you want to do is have them shaped so that they sort of start leaning in and then sort of slope back and then come back. It's sort of like an S curve almost. So it comes out in farther, starts accelerating down, and then sort of smooths out again. So I'll start modifying one over here just so that you can see what I mean a little easier. Model it after that guy there. Experiment a little bit to try to find a shape that eventually sort of looks right. Is that good? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. See, there's a sort of like a nice S sort of shape. Very gradual, but once you've gotten all of them shaped like that, you'll start to see the curves starting to appear. So that's what we're going after. I'll go and finish all of these up, and then I'll show you what I've got. Alright, well, I've gotten to a point where I consider this more or less pretty good, actually. As you can see, I've applied those S sort of curves across the entire front of the bow here, and I've also done some work on the contours of the stern. It's not perfect, really. It's interesting, but I think it's good enough for my purposes. I'm essentially trying to recreate more or less the same thing that I've got over here. I think I did a better job at contouring this guy. I might work on this. Definitely that looks sort of wonky once I've gotten this all filled in, and I'll do that later. But for now, I'm just going to try and fill in all of this with blocks. So I'm actually going to attempt something that I haven't ever attempted before. I don't know if it's going to work, but it'll be an interesting experiment. I'm going to use concrete powder to try and fill this in, but first I'm going to have to clear out the top here. I probably shouldn't have used the fill command for this, but cell poly. I'll try and clear this out as quickly as I can. Hopefully not take too much time. Alright, alright, alright. Seems good. Get rid of this temporary block that I had here. And then I'm going to want to fill this whole thing in. I'll do that with the walls command, I guess. That I made here, so I'll make that my first point. Walls glass. Red wool. Replace air torch. Alright, alright. That's so far so good. Alright, now here's for the moment of truth for my experiment. I don't know if this is gonna work, but gonna give it a shot. Let's try it. Alright, so replace air, let's not do red, lime, concrete, powder. Enter. Oh, come on, it's gonna yeah, it's gonna freeze my computer here for a second. Yep. And then all the concrete powder will fall all over the ship, all over those contour lines I made. Oh, I'm gonna have to remove item. If I can type the command, remove item. I can't even type. Oh, it's so frozen. I should have walked further away. Oh no, Minecraft is not responding. Perhaps I should have done individual layers on top of each other. Okay. Yeah, there's a space in there. So I'm going to do remove item 500. Just so I can get rid of all of those entities that end up spawning once the sand hits the torches. There we go. Oh, let's wait for it to say I quit. Okay. Come back on. See what damage I've done. Oh no. Oh no. Get out of there. Uh-oh. I can see that I've warped. I'm looking at the server dynamo. Oh, there we go. Okay. Just took a moment. I'm gonna sit here for just a second. Wait for that all to work itself out. Maybe run this command a couple of times. 0 entities. Ugh. Let's get a little closer. I can just barely see it happening out there. Oh, don't want to get too close. Oh, that's a lot of sand. Okay. Oh, it's still going. Oh, okay. Stand back. I can see that it's working, though. Should have done it slower. But it is working. Okay, it was an okay idea, I'll say that. I should have done it one layer at a time, instead of just doing the whole thing. The server is perfectly fine, I can say that. I can see myself moving on the diamond. It's just my PC. It's just so hard for my PC to render this happening. But yeah, you see what I was going for is I wanted the sand, the concrete powder, to drop and fill all of these contours I made. Because otherwise I would have had to, like, block by block place these, because WorldEdit isn't friendly to filling things in that are vertical like this. There's no command that I'm aware of that can do that without completely fucking up everything. Pardon my language, but it's gotten more or less all of the blocks I needed. The torches destroyed the excess on the outside, and once this is done processing, I can go ahead and finish out the outside here, but why isn't this done? Oh, I see, okay. I'm going to do one more operation. I'm going to get rid of all this white concrete. Remove item first. Okay, now the server seems to be... Okay, there we go. And then I'll replace... white concrete with air, and that should drop those. Yep, and fill it up nicely. And then I'll go ahead and WorldEdit out the excess up at the top here. So that will be everything above this level I'll want to replace with air. So /pos2, replace air. Then, oh yeah, that's fine actually. Replace air torch class. Fill clay 500. Come on, fill the clay. Oop, there we go. I'll keep doing that up until we fill this entire thing with clay. We're making a mold here, guys. You know how things are molded, casted? Making a clay mold. This is an experiment. I've never done this before. It might end terribly. Replace clay, water. And, woo, the clay has been replaced with water. And that'll convert all of the concrete powder on the outside layer into solid concrete while keeping the inside normal concrete. So I'll replace water, air, and move item 600. Excellent. And then, after that's solidified, I can select the whole thing once more and replace lime concrete powder with air. And that should leave a hollow shell left. Huzzah! Okay! That actually worked! Holy crap, okay. I was not sure. Excellent. So yeah, now we have the whole thing filled out. I'll of course want to replace this atrocious lime green powder with a color. I'll just do it the same as the rest of the ship. I'll replace it with stone. Replace lime concrete with stone. And then I'll just be able to mirror that onto the other side, and we'll have the shape of our hull pretty much ready. And the keel, I'm just going to be lazy. I'm going to do it just adding another block in around the bottom, just one block recessed from the rest of it. I'll refine it in just a moment, but first I just want to get this shape in. Perfect. Okay, that's the shape that I want. I'm going to replace all of these other blocks just so we have it all the same thing, and we can start working on refining it a little more, and then we should just flip it, change the color, and we'll be done. More or less. So, replace white concrete with stone. Check for any holes after I've done that. Yeah, there's a hole right there. Oh, or is there? Oh, there's going to be a lot of them, actually, because I'm going to need to fill this first. I'll do that now, so I don't forget. Yeah, did I select that? Okay, I did. Just a moment. Set stone. And I'll do /fill stone 500. I'll wait for that to go through. Okay, there we go. And then I'll want to cut this all out. I made that same mistake. Yeah, next time I do something like this, I won't use the fill command when I make these shapes. I'll just use a line so I can have an outline, because I don't need to keep this set here, because the decks will be in other places. There we go. Okay. I'll do Sal Poly. Take a look at what we've got. Excellent. Okay. I'm gonna put in the keel here. Well, not the keel. I should say flesh out this stern a little bit. Connect these. And fill in, this is the rudder of the ship. It's what allows it to turn, and then I'll want to put in propeller blades, screws as they called them. On either side there'll be 4 of them, but I think I'll save that for another day. I just want to get in the shape of this for today. So I think we're good to do a mirror of this now. Actually, no, I want to fix this first. That way I can work on something else another day instead of this. Is that enough? How far do I have it going here? Halfway, I suppose? Yeah, about halfway. I essentially just want to recreate the same ship, but at a slightly bigger scale. So I will use my own ship as reference for this other ship. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and flip this onto the other side, and then we should be ready to change the color. So I'll do copy, /flip. Is this north? Yeah, that's north. Flip north, and paste. And that should, yep, perfect. And we have a buoyant ship now. A little bit of cleaning up that I need to do here and there, but I won't worry about that just yet. So now I just want to color it in. Is that too much? I have a feeling that's slightly too much. I'm second guessing myself. I'll stick with it for now. I might adjust it later, because that will stick. Okay, you know, that's fine. That's fine, because I will have to modify this deck line. It shouldn't be perfectly flat. It'll sort of like lean up, as you can see here, toward the front of the bow, but I won't worry about that right now. I just want to worry about the color. So first of all, I'm just going to go up and replace all the way up to where the water line is going to be, which will be, I'll put this scaffold block back. Oh, I accidentally deleted them. Oh well. These aren't loaded. Uh-oh. Oh no. Okay. and I don't have access to top, so I'll warp Ren'sgate. I don't want to make the ship have the same exact colors as Titanic. Otherwise, everyone's just going to call it Titanic, and it's not Titanic. I'm actually using references from the Lusitania and the Aquitania. I can't say the names of half of these ships. They're all something Ania. Replace stone. I did netherrack. Yes, that'll excellent. And everything above that, I'll do. Was this pause too? No, it was not. Okay. Oh well. And I'll do the rest of it to coal blocks as I have there. Pause 2. Replace stone coal block. Excellent. We have the hull. It's coming along so nicely. What do I want to do? Do I want to just add another layer? Let me do some counting. Let's see. So I want to have the same number of decks that I have here. Hopefully this does right. So I'll have the top deck, and then I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 below that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe I'll shorten that to 3, but we'll see. Okay, so if I'm debating whether or not I want to replace this here with the white line, or if I want to put that on top. Let's experiment with it on top for just a moment. What are those? What does that proportion look like? It might be too much. I might want to lower that, actually. Yeah, I'll lower it down. I'll have the white strip here. Experiment, see. Do we have space for 3 blocks on all decks? Moment of truth. So the whole reason why I redid this. Oh, it lined up perfectly. Okay, you know what? I might just do 3 decks. That might be perfect. And then have one, another one below this. This should be the boiler room. And, you know, I think that's fine for me. Because this way there'll be portholes for all of the decks going along this way. And that'll expose out right there. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. Or I could, you know... I think I'd rather have this actually go up one. Yeah. Move one up. So I don't like how this porthole here is resting right on that line. Yeah, I'll come back to this. But as for today, I think we got a pretty decent shape knocked out here for this hull. You have a nice front. Look at that from a distance. Oh, I'll put the lines around just so we can see where the water line is going to be. I usually like to have that 1 block, 1 or 2 blocks below where the red water line area starts. Yeah, that needs to be deeper. So yeah, I'll probably extend the hole down a few blocks. Walls, blue wall. There we go. Alright, so we've got our hull knocked in here for our new vessel, and it is looking pretty good. I like the shape of that. You can see that signature, that nice curve that's coming out of the front of the bow there. Classic ocean liner. I'll have some towering smokestacks coming out of the top, just like this guy here. Sister ships. Well, not sister ships. They're actually quite different, but... yeah, I already have 2 ocean liners. One of them's not complete, and just make sure that the back piece here, the rear end looks fine. Yep, that's exactly how that should look. See it from this angle. Yeah, and that is what I want. So yeah, thank you guys for sticking around my WorldEdit sort of experience making this guy. I'm actually pretty happy with how this turned out. Hopefully, once I start getting the superstructure decks and masts in, I'll find that it'll be a lot easier to work with than this guy at its smaller scale. The lifeboats were sort of fun making, but it'll be more or less the same exact thing. Rip all of the stuff out of there, rebuild it here, turn this into something else. So anyways, thank you guys once again for paying attention, and I'll see you again in the next one.